So I love surprises. When I got here, I was told I was going to introduce Robb Dimmick, and, because I can, and I'm honored. You know what happens in this life is you do things, and sometimes you get an award or acknowledgement, and most of the time you don't. And I told you I have an attic full of these things. And Robb does it. And he deserves it. The favorite thing that Robb Dimmick has done, as far as I'm concerned, and we've got 100 things. He ran a program for young people to learn how to act and sing and jazz as a rainbow. 21 years. 21. And some of the young people in it you know. Viola Davis. And the other 1,000 you don't know. And that's Robb Dimmick and his work in this community. It is continuous, non-stopping. He's a curator. He creates history. He creates traveling panels. The one on the history of the Black Church was in Charles Roberts' hands for the last year in Newport. He created it so it could go to places. You can have a museum in Providence, but this is Rhode Island. Half the people in Newport and Portsmouth and Middletown and Sheridan and Little Compton get to Providence once every 7.5 years. So Robb came up with the concept of traveling exhibits. We have 8 of them. They're for you who don't have a car or a bus ticket. And I cannot tell you how important it is to get the history, Black history of this state to Richmond, or even to Newport. And Robb has seen that is done. I want each of you to do yourself a personal favor and go to Stages of Freedom's website. I remember to go there once a month and you think I don't need to go. But Robb's created 80–90% of the content. And I go and I say, wow! You think I'm joking. I go, wow! There are 1,000 Black sites on there in 37 towns and cities. And you live in Portsmouth, you go and you look. Robb did that. You know, and then I look at it and I say, and whatever I say, he says, no, we can't put that on. That place was torn down in 1919. I know something, but it's not the right thing to know. This is an amazing person who is an adopted son of Rhode Island. And it is wonderful for you to acknowledge him this evening. It really is, Victoria. It is, let me say this last thing about Robb. And this is, I'm pretending it's about Robb, but it's about you. I never go any place without saying this. If each of us did 10% more than we do for the community, you would be amazed. I have an example. I gave money to 44 Black women running for Congress last year. I do that. And then I'm sorry, because 28 of them lost. The candidate for president lost. And sometimes I said, can I get my money back? And the answer is no. I used to be Deputy Secretary of State, and someone made it possible for someone to be Ed Inman, to be Secretary of State, so he would pick this Black person to have the highest office statewide that any Black person's ever had. That's how far Rhode Island is behind. Did you hear me? We're not doing what we're supposed to do. So I think each of you should be more like Robb Dimmick. You didn't know that before you came here. We should all do a little more. Give a little more money. go volunteer at the soup kitchen? I took 12 cans of Campbell's soup to the soup kitchen the other day, and they kind of looked at me and said, "Oh, you got it." And I said, "I used to do a lot, but I have 20 things I'm working on, and 12 cans of soup is something." Did you hear me? I'm not telling you what some great little thing Ray Brickman did. I'm telling you how we can all do things every day that we're not doing. And you know it, Rob does this every day of his life, 7 days a week through Stages of Freedom and otherwise. Thank you for honoring him.
It is such a pleasure to be in the company of all of you. Thank you to all the dignitaries and those important people in the NAACP Newport County. I particularly want to recognize my dear kindred spirit, Victoria Johnson, and thank you for recommending me. So we are sitting in the midst of what I consider ground zero for African American and African excellence, accomplishment, and genius. The first piece of art in the New World is a headstone carved by Pompey Stevens for his brother. The first piece of sheet music in the New World is by an African named Newport Gardner. This is the center of African and African American excellence. And it is such an honor to be able to speak to you tonight relevant to that. I want to, before I begin, bring into the room our dearly departed Estelle Barada. Charles Roberts and I know Estelle quite well. She passed last year on Thanksgiving after a 7-year battle with pancreatic cancer. Unheard of length of time for someone to survive that debilitating cancer, because her spirit and her joy for life was so strong. She stayed with us for 7 years and stayed as a vital member of our community. And Estelle, for many years, right here in Newport, portrayed Duchess Quamino, who was known as the pastry queen of Rhode Island, and was enslaved by the Channing family, and bought her way out of slavery by her genius as a baker. And not only herself, but her husband and her children. So again, this is a remarkable place that we are gathered in tonight. Much of what I'm going to say tonight is perhaps preaching to the choir, but I think that Reverend Smith would agree that every once in a while, it is acceptable to preach to the choir. We are now faced with the fact that tomorrow is today. We are confronted with the fierce urgency of now. In this unfolding conundrum of life and history, there is such a thing as being too late. This is no time for apathy or complacency. This is a time for vigorous and positive action. Famously associated with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s call for immediate action against racial injustice in 1967, this statement signifies that the time for action is not in the future, but in the present. That inaction can be detrimental. It conveys the need for vigorous and positive action in civil rights, education, politics, poverty, systems, and injustices, emphasizing that there is no virtue in waiting. In his powerful letter from Birmingham jail, Dr. King writes in response to 8 white clergymen who criticized his protests as unwise and untimely, arguing that he is in prison because injustice is here, and that direct action is required because freedom is never voluntarily granted. King condemns white moderates as stumbling blocks to progress. If I am not for myself, who will be for me? If not now, when? Lila Watson, an Aboriginal woman from Australia, said, "If you have come here to help me, you are wasting your time. But if you've come because your liberation is bound up with mine, then let's work together." Allyship is a proactive, ongoing, and incredibly difficult practice of unlearning and reevaluating in which a person of privilege works in partnership with a marginalized people to help take down systems that challenge their basic rights, equal access, and ability to thrive in our society. Allyship is not identity. It is a lifelong process of building relationships based on trust, consistency, and accountability. Allyship is not an award. It is not a performance. It is not for the faint of heart. It works for a place of solidarity. Stages of Freedom, which Ray Rickman and I founded 10 years ago after each of us had worked in the vineyards of Rhode Island Black history for 30 years each, is an award-winning nonprofit whose entire raison d'etre is allyship, based on the premise that Black history is not a separate history. It is an American history. And all of us benefit from engaging with it. We came to this work as a white man and a black man at the meeting point of a mutual understanding, purpose, and partnership. Our work has been to build bridges across the racial divide, not pretending that the divide doesn't exist. It does. We have invented a unique model that uses the elevation of Black excellence and accomplishment to draw attention to the glaring, disproportionate numbers of African American children who cannot swim. In a nation founded on the enslavement of Africans who were the best swimmers in the world, it is unacceptable that these children of Africa should possibly drown because they cannot swim due to generational fear beaten into their ancestors, or the lack of access to swimming facilities due to racism or to financial limitations. So when you attend one of our Black History walks, lectures, concerts, exhibits, you will also learn about the award-winning Swim Empowerment Program and even be asked to dig into your pockets to help fund no-cost swimming lessons for youth ages 5 to 19 at 9 partnering YMCAs. And if you visit our museum, you will find books, art, and collectibles integrated into the exhibits, all donated by caring people and all paying for swim lessons when purchased. Another way that we are addressing the fierce urgency of now is through our virtual newsletter, Connected, which lands in 12,000 subscribers' inboxes 5 mornings a week. Started at the outset of COVID and now in its 5th year, Connected was designed to do just that. Connect our beloved community members to each other in times of the greatest isolation and uncertainty. Knowing that the Black community was bereft of media outlets aimed at their demographic, Connected provided essential information about the pandemic, safe ways to navigate it, and exciting resources and online experiences to lift the heart and buoy the spirit. Once out of the pandemic, we continue to offer Connected as a means of Black enlightenment and to advance equity and inclusion. Today, the newsletter features a monthly theme such as Black models, artists, authors, musicians, and this very month, National Aviation Month, aviators. Each topic is plumbed to reveal as much information about it as possible. A second component of the e-blast is a Black event, passage, business, or experience we believe our audience should know about or attend, thereby connecting one another with real-world, in-person opportunities. For 5 years running, it is I who has personally researched, curated, written, and designed these emails for an audience that waits with great interest and anticipation for them to drop at 7:45 a.m. Very few people know this. I don't advertise it, and I don't say it now for attention. I stand before you as an example of allyship. This is my commitment. This is my duty as a fellow human being. My favorite Connected series was on the contributions African Americans made to the ice cream industry during National Ice Cream Month. When I suggested it, I was told I couldn't possibly sustain an entire month furnishing a new historical fact each day, and I proved them wrong. Who knew that the ice cream scoop was invented by a Black man? That Polly Johnson, just over our border in New Bedford, ran an ice cream shop in the mid-1800s. That lovers of vanilla ice cream owe a debt of gratitude to a 12-year-old Edmund Alibius, who in 1841 discovered a pollination technique for the vanilla flower that dramatically increased its production. Or that James Hemings, Thomas Jefferson's enslaved cook, popularized ice cream in the States. These tiny history lessons may seem inconsequential or trite, but they are, in fact, big proof of the breadth and the depth and the long reach of Black presence, power, and persistence in our American lives. Connected is used in classrooms and homes by scholars, community leaders, and the curious to explore and acknowledge Black brilliance. The urgency of now is now up against an administration that wants to dismantle Black history, to erase it. Connected is just one step, one pushback to actively ensure that our young do not fail to know the greatness that their footsteps follow in. Ancestors such as the barrier-breaking soprano Ciceretta Jones of Providence, the remarkable radiologist Dr. Marcus Wheatland of Newport, and the valiant revolutionary patriot Caesar Room of Kingstown. I am a white man who has committed his life to allyship. I am a volunteer for justice. It is not enough to say, you're a good person, that you believe in equality, that Black lives matter, a sentiment often as thin as the paper it is printed on in your window. Prove it. Prove it. Yes. Allyship demands action, interaction, integration, and stepping over invisible walls that are unnecessary, that divide us. It doesn't require a pat on the back or even deserve one. It doesn't need an award or even recognition. It is simply to, as Spike Lee put it, do the right thing. And so, allyship is as much an honor and privilege for me to engage in as it has been for me to speak to you tonight. Thank you.
You know, I told my mentee yesterday, he's a Harvard Law student, and pretty soon he'll know more than I do. But I told him I get two kinds of awards. I get the kind that are made out of cheap plastic, and I leave them in the living room for about a month, and then I put them in the attic. And then I get the new fabulous awards. And I'm going to call him the minute I get home and tell him that NAACP knows how to give fabulous looks. They're beautiful. And I thank you. Let me say one other quick thing. This is a time of pessimism by almost everybody I know. Politicians, ministers, store owners, police, everybody. They're letting one or two people determine what they think. It's a mistake. And I've spent the last 8 months telling people what my mother taught us as children. If it's not your brother or your sister criticizing or calling you names, pay little or no attention except for the fight. Don't let them mess with your mental health. Did you hear me? Yeah. Almost everybody who comes to the stages of freedom starts talking about Trump. And I say, how are your children? I'm serious. You didn't hear me say not fight. I said fight. Right, bud? But fighting and being depressed, those are two separate things. Thank you for recognizing my 44 years of work for Newport and the other lesser 38 towns and cities.
We also have a commendation from U.S. Senator Jack Reed, as well as Congressman Gabe Amo and Secretary of State Greg Memorial. Thank you so much, Dr.